Two sentences, lightning fast. Cardano might be about to pay itself for being smart, and the move could shake up the whole DeFi table. Stick around, because the way that Charles Hoskinson wants to spin $100 million of ADA into an endless money carousel honestly made my morning espresso taste more like rocket fuel. Okay, so here is what happened. I was doom scrolling on my phone, half awake, when I caught the reply of Charles's latest Ask Me Anything. And it's his in that kind of trademark kind of black cowboy hat, fielding questions like a crypto sheriff. And someone says, Charles, when are we getting a real stablecoin liquidity on Cardano? Instead of the usual, we're working on it, he drops a plan that feels like a scene straight out of Ocean's 11. Move $100 million worth of ADA from the community treasury, swap it for USDM, the ecosystem's brand new fiat-backed stablecoin, and then make that pile of cash hustle 24/7. And right here, before we kind of dive deeper, the lawyers need a little bit of a cameo. Now, this of course might shock you all, but I am not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. This video, of course, is for entertainment and educational purposes only. So picture Cardano's treasury as a colossal dragon hoard, 1.7 billion ADA, roughly $1.23 billion at today's prices. Now that's kind of snoozing there like, smog on gold bars, right? Shifting just $100 million of that hoard into USDM doesn't even wake the dragon. It barely is 6%. Yet that little kind of slice could actually pull in some serious yield. Now, Charles says 5 to 10% yearly. Now, that's kind of $5 to $10 million, paid not in kind of bland stablecoins, but in fresh ADA scooped off the open market, then lofted right back into the treasury. Now, it's kind of like planting a money tree and feeding it its own kind of fruit so that it keeps on growing taller. Now, you might be thinking, why USDM and not some flashy third-party stablecoin? And well, it's because USDM is Cardano native, less middleman drama, fewer regulatory landmines, and crucially, all those juicy fees and liquidity incentives stay within the family. It's kind of like deciding to brew your own craft coffee instead of buying the generic stuff. Sure, it takes a little bit more work, but the aroma fills your entire house instead of someone else's. And here is where things get even spicier. Charles even name-dropped Brevan Howard. The kind of Brevan Howard, the $35 billion hedge fund titan known for, hunting macro trades like sharks hunt tuna. Now, the idea here is to bring them in to help market make and of course pump Cardano's total value locked. So think TVL as kind of the weight class measurement in DeFi boxing, and Cardano currently sits in the kind of featherweight territory compared to Ethereum's heavyweight status. So boosting TVL with a hedge fund partner is like steroids without the scandal. It's legal volume, real liquidity, better matches. But hold on, there's an elephant tap dancing in the corner. That's called risk. Now, treasury funds, are community property, right? Swinging $100 million into stablecoins sounds safe on paper, but stablecoins can break their pegs faster than toddlers break crayons. Remember Terra USD? 1 minute its pegged is kind of tight, and the next minute you're on a kind of set with everything exploding in slow motion. Now, USDM promises full fiat backing, yet transparency reports and audits must stay squeaky clean, right? Or trust vanishes quicker than your favorite meme coin after Elon stops tweeting about it. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers. 5% yield on $100 million equates to $5 million, or at least $5 million worth of ADA buybacks annually. 10% means $10 million. Now that's not just loose change, is it? That's enough to fund multiple, catalyst grants, bankroll hackathons, or reinforce, staking incentives. And because the buybacks happen on public exchanges, you can kind of simultaneously lower circulating supply. Basically, econ that says cut the supply while demand stays flat, or better yet, rises and price pressure tilts north. But not to the moon in one leap, but maybe a steady climb instead of sideways boredom. Now, of course, the Cardano veterans will recall that VCs like 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋 and kind of Pantera, have plenty, or pretty much, in fact, ghosted ADA in favor of shinier narratives like Solana, Avalanche, or whatever kind of trendy ZK rollup of the week it is. And this is pretty much because they can get their hands on it. Now, Charles never one to mince his words, once joked that A16Z ignored Cardano's entire existence in their kind of annual State of Crypto simply because they didn't have any skin in the game. And that's very much it. These VCs are scum of the earth, in my humble opinion, right? They're only going to be pumping what's in their best interests. Now, this treasury yield loop flips the script though, right? If the ecosystem itself can prove a stable, boring, dividend-like return, well, big wallet venture capitalists might actually start sniffing around. Not for charity, but for yield. Now, Charles even floated a range of $25 to $45 million in VC inflows if the plan clicks. Now, nothing turns Silicon Valley heads faster than predictable cash flow with an upside kicker. And here is the relatable pain point though. As a DeFi, degen, or even a curious investor, you hate idle capital, right? It's kind of like seeing your treadmill collecting dust in the corner. You bought it with good intentions, but without kind of momentum, it's just a very expensive kind of coat rack. Now, Cardano's treasury right now is a coat rack. Sure, having a war chest is prudent, but money that merely exists gets kind of gnawed at by inflation, missed opportunities, and in crypto time, the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel. Putting a chunk of that to work while keeping the principal convertible back to ADA later is basically telling you that the treadmill, okay buddy, no more exercise, start spinning. And of course, the stablecoin angle solves a second headache. Liquidity greases the gears of DeFi. Yield farms, lending protocols and pools, on-chain order books, they all need stable pairs to set prices and allow traders to jump in and out without slippage headaches. More USDM depth kind of means bigger trades, tighter spreads, and fewer price impact horror stories on Twitter. So just picture trying to pour a gallon of milk through a coffee straw. That's the current liquidity. Now, Charles wants to swap the straw for a fire hose. He even tossed in a midnight blue subplot, right? The Midnight Protocol, Cardano's coming privacy sidechain that plans to double airdrop, that's night and dust, to 37 million retail wallets, including Bitcoin and XRP holders. Zero allocation for VCs or insiders. Now, if that launch lands smoothly, it showcases that Cardano can simultaneously innovate, reward the retail crowd, and still run a tight compliance ship. Layer on the stablecoin yield engine, and suddenly the narrative shifts from Cardano is slow and academic to Cardano pays its own bills and still ships product. Okay, so humor me with a very quick analogy here, right? You ever kind of watch one of those kind of perpetual kind of motions toy birds that kind of dips its beak in water, right? And then just keeps rocking forever, right? Hoskinson's proposal is basically the DeFi version, right? The treasury bird, dips into USDM, earns yields, buys ADA, and stands back up. Right, and then just repeats the process. In reality, perpetual motion breaks the laws of thermodynamics, but in finance, you can, of course, recycle yield faster than your actual outflows. And so you can actually at least kind of fake the illusion for a good long run, assuming that there's no black swan that kind of swoops in and knocks the bird off the table, of course. So risk management, buzzword, sure, but here are, of course, the top 3 red flags that Cardano must wave, in kind of the open breeze, right? Counterparty risk, with, hedge funds. Hedge funds can, of course, be brilliant, but brilliance sometimes hides leverage. Transparent contracts, on-chain reporting, and third-party audits are non-negotiable there. Regulatory creep then. So stablecoins are sitting ducks for a few new rules, right? If USDM gets caught out of compliance, conversations and conversions, they might just freeze, right? Build a kind of kill switch for contingencies. And then, of course, you've got community governance backlash, right? Because moving treasury funds requires consensus. A vocal minority might and could splinter support if they feel that decisions are top-down instead of bottom-up. Now, Cardano's governance model needs to prove that it isn't just a fancy veneer. And here is the part that everyone forgets. None of this stops this stops at $100 million, right? If year 1 yields flows kind of backs very smoothly, well, Cardano could decide to rotate another slice or spin off a dedicated yield vault that keeps compounding, right? It snowballs, and 5 years out, the treasury could be self-funding every kind of major upgrade, scholarship, and hackathon, while barely even dipping into its principal. That's the financial kind of anti-gravity, right? Get kind of punched in the face by a bear market, shrug it off, and pay the developer grants anyway. All right, so let me kind of drop a quick anecdote, right? Back in 2021, I tried yield farming on a chain that kind of shall not be named. APRs looked mouth-watering, 300%. 2 months in, the token imploded and the fees ate half of my gains. The lessons were learned, right? It's boring, it's repeatable, yields beat the carnival ride APYs every single time, right? 5 to 10%, it might not look very sexy, but compounding it over the years while reducing circulating supply, that's a slow cooker that turns tough meat into brisket. All right, so by the way, if you're hungry for day 1 kind of shoes on the ground insight, you need to hop into the free educational Discord. There's a link in the description down below. We're going to dissect moves like this in real time. We're going to share the charts, and occasionally we're going to bond over dad jokes so bad that they should be illegal in, at least 13 different jurisdictions. Seriously, right? The server costs you absolutely nothing, but the aha moments are absolutely priceless. Okay, so it's a quick pit stop for the sponsorship segment, because we did have that little flash up in the top corner at the beginning of the video. We all know you saw it. So it's a shout out to Blowfin, the crypto exchange. Now, I use Blowfin and use it when I need deep liquidity without the kind of 12 pop-up headache that some platforms throw at you. But for full disclosure, yes, the Blowfin link in the description down below is an affiliate link. And when you sign up using that link, it directly supports this channel, and it supports our caffeine addiction and these deep dives. So if you're opening an account anyway, use the link, snag their latest promo, whatever it may be, and keep me fueled and everybody wins. Okay, so now let's get back to our regular scheduled drama then. How exactly does a hedge fund partnership pump TVL? So let's think about, Brevan Howard and as kind of the, whale that splashes first, right? They will seed the liquidity pools, maybe even launch a structured product or two, and, smaller fish will swarm in because whale watching is safer than swimming in empty waters. TVL metrics will spike, DeFi dashboards will of course light up, and the dreaded ghost chain memes, they will evaporate overnight. So let's just imagine, right? A16Z analysts kind of running their own numbers. Wait, Cardano just did 10% ROI using its own treasury while simultaneously growing its TVL by 40%? And the community sentiment, of course, is up. Right? Suddenly, those phone calls, they will get returned. Funding rounds will open. Charles will finally stop wearing that sarcastic "VCs just don't get us" badge. And or maybe even keep wearing it for style, of course. It's the dealer's choice at that point. There's also a kind of mind game aspect here, right? Blockchain ecosystems, they are going to be thriving. In fact, they do thrive on narratives. And narratives, they thrive on momentum, right? Ethereum, it prides itself on being the Swiss Army knife, right? Solana sells its speed. Bitcoin is digital gold. But if Cardano nails the self-sustaining treasury plus community-first story, well, that's a brand that nobody else can easily copy without years of governance rewiring. Okay, so let's zoom out to a broader macro lens, right? Traditional finance currently pays, what, 4 to 5% on high-yield savings? Right, DeFi protocols, they come and go, promising triple digits, but sustainable, regulated stablecoin yield at 5+%, well, that's kind of a bridge product. Safe-ish for traditional finance or TradFi folks, juicy just enough for crypto natives. Now, Cardano, it could actually market itself as a stepping stone for conservative investors tired of the 0.01% checking accounts, but wary of the meme coin chaos. Okay, so it's the potential climax moment, the day that Cardano governance votes yes on moving the funds, right? That transaction hits the blockchain. Within seconds, you see $100 million worth of ADA swap into USDM on chain. Explorers light up, Twitter spaces explode, and price charts kind of jitter like they just had 3 espressos. The very next day, TVL dashboards start ticking upwards, and some analysts will tweet, hey, Cardano just added 80 million TVL overnight. What did I miss? And that is kind of when the perception will kind of flip the script. Then, of course, because we can't help ourselves, we'll peek at the kind of conspiracy board. Critics will yell Ponzi because any buyback loop smells like price manipulation, right? Regulators will, of course, squint, but buybacks are legal if transparent and funded by real yield, not fresh air. So the trick is bulletproof reporting, monthly statements, on-chain proofs, independent auditors, right? Show your homework. When skeptics run out of red kind of string theories, they will start asking how they can join the party instead of trying to stop it. You can then fast forward 1 year. Best case scenario, Treasury has earned $8 million worth of ADA. USDM sits firmly at peg. TVL is up 60%, and at least one top 10 VC has publicly backed Cardano's native DeFi startup. The worst case, USDM loses its peg. Hedge fund desk closes positions at a loss. ADA's price takes a short-term punch, and the community rallies to do kind of a post-mortem, I guess, and course correct. Bearable, survivable, educational. Crypto is, Darwinian. It's innovation demands experiments from time to time. All right, so let's go ahead and land this plane with 3 big key takeaways that you can brag about at your next blockchain meetup. Idle treasuries are opportunity costs, right? If you're not earning while you build, you're silently bleeding purchasing power, right? Native stablecoins are strategic, right? They keep value captured inside the ecosystem and double the trust signals for DeFi tourists. And then you've got transparent, right? Cynical buybacks create reflective kind of confidence, if you will, right? And people, they kind of like feeling that the protocol itself believes in its own token, right? And so it's very important. And the other thing that we have to talk about here is you need to remember to join the free Discord for deeper dives, daily charts, and more occasional terrible puns, that you never actually asked for. And if you're kind of hunting for an exchange, tap that Blowfin link, right? The affiliate link that's in the description, because good liquidity and good karma can indeed coexist. Now, finally, if all of this talk of treasuries turning into perpetual yield machines lit a spark, then smash that subscribe button so that you don't miss the next rabbit hole that we wander down together. Catch you in the next one.